Welcome to the Love Unplugged podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Frigon. You may know me from Project Love, where we focus on operational excellence, but here we go deeper. We're your go-to for raw, empowering conversations on entrepreneurship and stepping into your CEO role with love and confidence. Each week, we'll explore everything from mindset shifts, leadership, optimal wellness, to efficient systems, all within a community of visionary women like you. Ready to get real about building a business and life you love? Hit subscribe and let's start this transformative journey together. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Love Unplugged. I'm your host, Jessica, and today we have very special guests, people that I deeply admire in the interior design space. Please join me in welcoming Melissa and Sacha, founders of Leclair Decor. And I am so honored to have you both join me today, so thank you.
Thank you. We're so excited to be here.
Absolutely. We're thrilled. Thank you.
Amazing. So let's walk through your career leading up to creating your business and jumping into the interior design space. What were you guys doing? Was it the intention to land where you are currently?
It kind of naturally happened. So, personally, I was interested in interior design. I, decorated my apartment, probably above average from a normal bachelor would, back in the day. So, Mel, I think it kind of sparked your interest in there at that time too.
I was interested in before too, but yours even started before that. As you were a kid, you were interested in drawing out floor plans.
I did, yeah. And my mom and I used to go to model homes and get inspired when I was a kid. So I always had an interest in it.
And then doing graphic design
so I've always had kind of an eye for design and other facets, photography and graphic design. So just bringing that kind of eye to interiors was kind of like a natural progression.
And then previously to us starting this, I think dabbling around for trying to find my career path for a while. And then obviously when we got together, I kind of reignited, he's such a creative, so it reignited my passion for creativity. I had originally wanted to do interior design back when I was in high school, but then kind of lost the path. And then so I regained it and started doing color consults and working at a local shop. And then it all really started when, right after we got married and we got our first house, we kind of showed up the next day after the wedding, paintbrush in hand, kind of ready to tackle it.
We actually got the keys to the house the morning after the wedding.
So groggy, but we were so excited. And I think we both really fell in love with the process of just collaborating together and deciding on things together and kind of putting up the wallpaper and painting. And we just had so much fun doing it and really connected, I think, in the creative aspect of it. And I think there was so much alignment there. And then our friend...
Well, we documented it on a blog. I think you originally called it Paint, Decor, and More, I believe.
You're in the beginning stages of developing something. You don't really think about the... I'm just oh, this is very practical,
So yeah,
that was the Twitter handle or something.
Yeah, but we started sharing pictures of our home on social media, and then our friends started asking, "Well, hey, this looks great. Could you possibly help me?" So we did our very good friend's apartment as a free kind of pro bono,
as you do,
just to get going and just to see and to help out.
And it was fun. It was really fun.
And
he was so great, and
then he ended up having friends over for a work party, and then one of his friends say, "Well, who did your place? I want to hire them." And then they reached out to us, and then that's kind of how
they were
business
"We want
started.
to pay you," and I was "You're going to pay me to decorating?"
So at that point, that was the start of Leclair Decor.
Yeah. Then we website, business cards, and it was a side hustle for a good 3-4 years.
Yeah, you still continued to work at the paint store for a couple of years, and I was DJing quite often. And then I think our big break came when a local builder called us. And they needed 9 model homes decorated. So we were yeah, sure, let's take it on.
I said, sure. And I came home and told him, he was how are we going to do that? I'm I don't know. We're going to figure it out.
So looking back at the way we looked at the logistics, we didn't know how to kind of organize doing a project that big, but we got it done somehow. And they liked what we did, so they kept hiring us. But that was kind of our big break. At that point, we left our other jobs and said, okay, this is it. Let's jump in this business full time. And then from there, it kind of flourished. So, yeah.
Wow. All right. So I have a few questions. Newlyweds, jumping into renovating a house. You
Yeah.
know that can spark some interesting conversations with the amount of stress. There's a lot of things that come out of a renovation. You pull back the walls and everything's a mess, and like things are probably delayed from, right now with COVID. So I'd love to know your experience working together as newlyweds in a new marriage, and now you're renovating this house. What advice would you have for those that are currently doing that themselves in order to make it successful?
I think always go into it having had thorough discussions beforehand, go in with a plan, a budget, but also expect delays, expect things to take longer, be over budget, and prepare for those things. I think you go in thinking this is going to be a breeze. That's when you really kind of get startled by the whole process. I think go in knowing that it's going to be a bit trying, and being in limbo is hard. I think you think that, but once you're in limbo and your stuff is in all these places and your house is in a bit of a disarray, that can be very disorienting for long periods of time. So I think preparing for that. And then for us, when we did this house, it was really important to have a space that was clean and clear. And so you could have peace of mind in, even if it's just a little nook in the house somewhere. So I think go in, preparedness is really crucial.
Yeah, when we did this house, we moved to the basement first we did the upstairs, and then we moved back up, and then we did the main floor after that. So yeah.
Patience, persistence. And you have to really hold on to like the process is tough, but the end result is worth it. You're getting, the functionality out of the home that you really want and the aesthetic and everything. So in the long run, it's worth it. But it is like many things, a bit of a marathon and definitely a challenge. I would say communication, meditation, workout, do the self-care stuff so that you can kind of maintain your sanity. Yeah, that's important.
And I think to learn to appreciate the process. I mean, some people get frustrated. Like, it's going to be dusty. That's going to be difficult. But it's kind of fun coming home every day and seeing the progress, right?
Mm.
Like, I kind of fell in love with that when we renovated the house. And when we were done, I'm always like, well, what's next? Like, what am I going to come home to and like got done today? When it was all done, I was like, okay, well, like you kind of enjoy that. So
I think it's like
I think it's important to fall in love with that process too.
It's like a bit of delayed gratification. I think we're so used to instant gratification where, you get something quick. This is definitely delayed gratification. And I think you earn it. You earn that reward afterwards and you get to sort of live in that space. And for us, that's so important to have a space that really feels like you, and to me, that's worth it. So I think holding on to that. Yeah.
That's great advice. Now, stepping into starting an actual business versus going to work for another interior design studio or company, what prompted you to go down this path versus the other?
Honestly, we didn't think about it. People ask us this all the time, and it just happened. I mean, it didn't just happen. I mean, we took the steps to move it forward, but there wasn't a conscious decision that happened initially. I would say I would definitely encourage people to get, and I always have encouraged people to get experience from wherever you can, whether that's working with another designer, whether that's working in the field, like at a tile shop or a paint store or, blinds. There's so many facets to the industry. So getting knowledge and acting as a sponge around as many people as you can is so beneficial. There's so many, variables within that field in this world. So I would say definitely gather knowledge and experience from anyone and everyone. But we just, like we had said before, kind of fell in love with our home and then our friend's home, and then it just sort of started. So we didn't actively pursue the career and then do it. We just sort of did our house and started to put our portfolio out into the world, I guess, without really even thinking about the long-term plan there. And then it sort of spiraled, and then we had a company.
Yeah, we kind of eased into the type of projects we were doing too.
Yeah.
I mean, we started with more decorating projects, light renovations, painting cabinets, those types of things. And obviously we've evolved into doing full new builds now. So it took a while to progress to doing projects that technical.
Mm-hmm.
So we started slow. That would probably be good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. What advice would you have for those that are starting out in the industry? As self-taught interior designers, which is just mind-blowing to see how you've gotten to where you're at today. What are some key things that you feel that really set you up for success to get to where you are now?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. So I think obviously in the digital age that we're in, portfolio is key. And we were so grateful. Like we were in, on Instagram back in the stone ages when you used to like really filter your photos and it was so fun. But I think
You put the
having
little Polaroid like
yeah.
thing around
Yes.
it.
But it was so amazing to have at that time, because previously you'd have to show up and sell yourself and have a portfolio to show people. But now, you can show your portfolio out in the world before people even know who you are. So I think that is a gift and being able to really lean into that. So for us in the early days, it was really like utilizing our home as our portfolio.
Yeah, like I was going to say, like I think your own home is your biggest marketing asset as a designer.
Mhm.
So play around. I mean, you have all the time in the world to create different looks and
Yeah.
photos and get really creative with it. So use your home as a marketing tool, and that's how a lot of designers have started. And even big designers now, their own homes are still their biggest marketing tools. If you look around, right? Like even us, like our places, like that's where we do the biggest shoots. That's where we can really story tell. Of course, our client homes are beautiful, but in our own homes, we're here every day, so we can shoot. We can really try new things. So as a young designer, yeah, your own home is your biggest marketing tool.
And then leaning on friends and family, like again, that's kind of what we did in the beginning too, was like to grow the portfolio and have more images was, I don't want to go and tell everyone to work for free, but you kind of have the hustle in the beginning to gather what you can and show people, the design that you're able to do or the decorating that you're able to do in the initial stages. And that's how you get going. At least that's how you get your feet wet.
Yeah. How did you guys learn the technical stuff? Was it just like a lot of Googling and watching YouTube videos and kind of having conversations with contractors and, those types of things?
Well, we lean on third parties for technical stuff. So, but I think,
Well, as we grew our team too, we looked to hire people that had the technical skills that we were starting to need. So that's kind of how we.
But definitely over time, you're naturally gathering the vocabulary, and I think just intuitively, just knowing how we wanted things to look. So there was just such a visionary aspect to it too, of just like, I want this material, I want, these lines, and over time, you're able to actually kind of articulate that in a more advanced way. But I think even before you're ready, I think it's okay to kind of come forward with your vision and don't shy away from that, because that's so important. And in the initial stage, it's nerve wracking, when you're trying to be, and they're like, is that going to look good? And I'm like, in my head, it looks good. Like, I think so. But you have to kind of, I think, get a little brave with that and really lean into your visionary skills and then back them up with like, it is going to look good. You can picture it. I mean, now there's so many, different software too you can play around with to visualize things, but I think that's really important, is trusting your instincts, which is hard when people start questioning them, and your creativity is, you're like it's a balancing act. I think anytime you're approaching any new venture, you have a bit of imposter syndrome, and part of the battle is walking through that, and getting to the other side of that. And that character will build over time as you go through each project.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that kind of doesn't cure it, because I don't think it ever like fully goes away, but the only thing that will help is time. And I love what you just mentioned about that. It is just going to take time, and you have to put yourself out there, and the imposter syndrome is going to creep in, but you just have to go with it and trust your intuition, which is so hard to do because technically your creative work is like, it's yourself. You're putting yourself out there. It's your ideas, right?
Totally.
So it can be very challenging.
Yeah. And I think you think at some point you'll be able to coast, but there's imposter syndrome at every level, at every stage, at every, new project or new venture or whatever you're doing. So I think life is a bit of a journey, and sort of flexing that muscle becomes important. And that's how you're going to continue to grow and expand and level up, and in whatever ways that you want to do that. So lean into that, as scary as it is, and embrace that it feels uncomfortable when you're trying something new on, or elevating what you're doing to the next level. It's uncomfortable, but once you get to the other side, you're like, I did it. And you get to build that character and flex that muscle. And that's sort of the beauty of growth. Yeah.
I love that. Now, this is something that I recently talked about with a group of interior designers. Coming from the operational perspective, I understand the whole back end of the business. But a lot of people, including myself, when it comes to the marketing and PR aspect, you step into business with your zone of genius, which for interior designers, it's your creative work. But a lot of people fail to realize that running a business comes along with so much more that has nothing to do with that zone of genius. So I'd love to know from you guys, how do you balance the operational and the creative aspects of your business?
I think that's definitely challenging. And I mean, I think for so many business owners in any realm, like there's so much more that goes into it that you don't even think about in the beginning. And part of that is just learning and growing, and every business is different and you may want to tailor it differently. So I think learning, growing, leaning into the discomfort of not knowing that, I sat on accounting meetings where I'm like, you are speaking another language and I have no idea what you're saying, but I'm Googling it and I'm trying to learn, I'm like, I don't know what you're saying, but I am here to figure that out. I think, again, leaning into the discomfort of like, ask the questions. Don't feel stupid. That's their job to know, what you don't know. So ask those questions. I think it's important to know, you don't have to be an accountant or be the back end of operations of everything. But I think it's really important to know a deep enough level that you can make decisions. You have the data to, grow or expand your business or, pivot or make changes to, and you need to do that with the information. So you need to have at least a deep enough level to have conversations with, the leadership team or the consultants or freelancers that you're working with. So I do think, like, as uncomfortable as it is, it's really important to lean into those conversations and start to learn that level. And it's not fun. I mean, some of that stuff is not fun. It's challenging. It's difficult. It's complex sometimes. And it's not the fun creative stuff, but it is a part of the package. So you have to embrace it if that's the direction you want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's talk about the operational framework that you've created in order to get to this very successful business, this multi-dimensional business with, the Airbnb. Is it an Airbnb? No.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, short-term rental.
Yeah.
As well as your interior design business and whatnot. How did you set yourself up to be able to operationally run these three businesses?
Oh, it's constantly evolving, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a constant learning curve. And no one told me COVID was coming, so that was rude.
Slightly, right?
Yeah. It's been an evolving game, I think. So, I mean, we did a lot of things right and a lot of things wrong, like running and growing the business, obviously. So I think my advice to anyone who is starting is go slow. If you are hiring or need talent or a specific individual, always be very curated in what you're looking for. I think aim high, interview well, and be patient. I think don't ever just hire someone to fill a space. It's really, really important. It's such a, embodiment of your company, but then there's so much that goes with that, the training and the fit and the skill set and a way you're wanting to level up your company is going to be reliant on those people, and having a strong foundation is so crucial to that. And so again, I think we made some really amazing decisions and maybe some not so great decisions through that process. So I would say definitely be patient and make sure you're very specific about what you're looking for, and then create a really strong onboarding. Because again, in the beginning, we were totally hustling and just filling spaces and kind of be like, jump in the deep end and figure this out. You're just in this get moving space, which again, if I could go back, I would have been like, build out the processes right from the beginning and then onboard people with those processes in place, because afterwards trying to funnel in systems and things like that, it's harder to get people who are already in this older set mindset into a new mindset. And then, yeah, it just can get really fumbled. So I would say if your goal is, and I think in the beginning, you're not thinking that big or that long term, but I would say, like, again, just envision the biggest dream and kind of set yourself up from there. Because that way, even if that's a long way away, you're on the right path already.
I think we just need to stop right there. If anybody takes anything away from this, that is gold. It's absolutely gold. And I know that a lot of people have been burned in the hiring and the onboarding process, which creates a lot of fear for people to even try again because they're like, it's just going to take up way more of my time and it's just going to be a nightmare. But if you do exactly what Melissa just said, is going to help you to be able to be successful with building out that team and that culture and, you know, driving your business towards its goals. So thank you for sharing that. That was great.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to the other end of the operations, like the client experience and managing projects and whatnot, I'd love to hear what your experience has been developing, what your process is, which you don't have to share because I know it's, you know, IP to a certain degree. But what has that evolving journey been like for you?
I think experience has always been a really important aspect to it, whether it's Leclair Decor in the design or the shop or even the cabin. Obviously, we want to make sure that the experience is really an integral part of our thought process as we're building out whatever it is that we're building out, because anyone can have a service or a product or whatever, but it's really kind of like, how are you impacting them? How are you making them feel? How are they experiencing this? And how are we both gaining value out of it, you know? And I think that's so crucial when you're setting up, especially a client process or a client experience. I mean, I think that's really crucial. I think the same thing, I think, you know, we originally you have your initial proposals. Those have developed over time as we've gathered feedback. Like, I think make sure as you go through the process, gather feedback, be open to receiving information, even if it's, you know, you have those cringe moments where, but I think always be open and be interpreting what the clients are telling you or where they're lacking information. So it's like, oh, they, you know, missed that this phase had these parts in it. So make sure you're building that back out, because setting the expectations from the get-go is so crucial. So make sure your onboarding for your clients is really intuitive. They're not going to read a lot. So make sure you're really going over things that are really important with them directly. I felt like that was so important, and hit them over the head with it, you know, as many times as you can. Because again, there's a lot of information that they're taking in and they're just not absorbing all of it. So make sure you're kind of walking it through with them. Again, whatever business that you're in, make sure that those expectations are set up from the beginning. And then I think constantly circling back, and clear conversations are so important. Open dialogue is really important. And then constantly revisiting your processes and making sure that they're consistently up to date with where you're at. You know, is your billing set up properly? Are you charging the right amount based on, you know, your costs and how much time someone's taking up? And we're going through an overhaul right now too, just because, you know, so many things go on. And so gathering all that data and redoing those things and making sure that you're showing up as your best self right from the get-go, being very clear with them, you know, you're charging and feeling comfortable with what you're charging based on the fact that you've done the data and the research, you know, after you've started your business. And being able to articulate that, and I think in a really fluid way to the client is so important. I don't think you should like sell yourself, but you should feel confident in what you're putting forth and your value that you're bringing. And if people are questioning it, you're sort of like, well, this is the value that you're getting out of the service or whatever it is that you're doing. Yeah.
As for the other ventures, like the store, which is now closed, we can talk about that a little bit later. But and in the cabin, I mean, the client experience has always been very important to me, and just trying to go above and beyond to create something special. Just something as small as, you know, when we opened the store, we put 2 fridges and we had tons of water bottles, and we basically would offer water to anyone that would walk in. It doesn't matter if you're buying anything, but I just wanted everyone to feel comfortable, you know, feel hydrated. And then we made sure we had nice bathrooms. We had 2 nice bathrooms that were always open. We got brand new baby changing tables, and you'd be surprised at how often people were so surprised and so happy that we had these facilities, because I wanted to make everyone feel comfortable there, right? So that was really special. And now with the cabin hosting people, we really try to go above and beyond to try to help people have an amazing experience in the area. And the area is something that we're really passionate about. We didn't just buy an Airbnb in some area we visited once. Like, we've gone there. Well, I've gone there my whole life. Since we met, you gone there all the time too. But we really love the area. So when people ask us questions, like, I will just go off. Like, I'll be like, oh, you asked me a question about parking at the ski hill? I will tell you everything you need to know. Like, so just really trying to create those amazing experiences, and physically in the cabin as well, with the scents and like all those little details. We just want to make
I
it
think
special.
it naturally comes out when you love what you do too, and I think, being an entrepreneur is hard. Running a company is hard. Building a company is hard. You really need to have that passion to, I think, maintain the energy that's required and to create that balance, because it is challenging on all facets. And so that passion and that drive for the love of what you do is really what helps balance it out and refill your cup, because it can be draining, and so you need to have that balancing act happening. And you can't lose sight of that, because I think there are parts when our company was peaking during things and I was taken away from parts that did fill my cup. And, I became it's you got to really work to avoid burnout, because it's easy to get dragged into a burnout mode where you're just, burning the candle on both ends and sort of grinding through and just trying to keep up with the train that's quickly taking off, and you're trying to keep up with it all. So I think just really maintaining that balance and staying grounded and staying consistent with your vision of what you're doing and why you're doing it, and holding on to that throughout the process, because it can kind of run away from you if you don't hold on to it.
That's great advice. I absolutely love that. And I love how intentional you are about the experience throughout all the different areas of your business. It's really felt with your Airbnb. If anybody is tuning in, check out that Airbnb. It's by far one of those beautiful ones I've ever seen. It's also located in my home province, so it's even more closer to my heart.
Yeah.
But the experience at your store, like putting baby change tables and like the scent and like just all those types of things where you're really trying to make it feel like home, which is what you want them to feel like when they're coming into a store like yours, right? That's just so incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So let's talk about a challenge. There's been many with COVID in general. You can talk about COVID and how it's impacted you. You can talk about your store closing, but let's talk about a pivot or a change that had to happen in your business due to some unforeseen challenge that came up and how you navigated that.
Yeah. I mean, COVID was definitely a curveball. And I think
It was a blessing and a curse. Like,
Yeah.
it's, our business basically skyrocketed overnight. During the first month of COVID, we slowed things down. Or like, what's going to happen? And then I think as soon as people started to realize like this was going to be a long-term thing and everyone's going to be stuck at home for a long time, I think everyone really started to think about making their homes as best as they could, because they weren't going to travel, they weren't going to go anywhere. So our business really grew during COVID. And then we got really excited about it. We reinvested in the business. We hired, we had to, because like the sales were going up. So yeah, it grew a lot during COVID. And then of course there was a peak, right? So as people started traveling again and things started opening up, things started to slow down a little bit. So we've been kind of catching ourselves.
Yeah, like it's sort of this fluid thing that's happening. And I think that happens in business in general, even on the design side and on the store side. Like things just sort of ebb and flow naturally. So I think when you're running a company, it's important to almost, brace for those fluctuations and don't necessarily just ride the wave, just sort of keep yourself a little bit steadier. I think
it's definitely something we've learned.
Yeah, we learned it the hard way. And again, setting up your processes beforehand, because ours were not set up to scale in the way that they needed to flex into, different departments and different people and, system breakdown. Talk about system breakdown. So it was, and then you're just running around putting out fires, trying to rebuild the structure as your train is taking off, and it's challenging. And yeah, COVID was such a beautiful thing, but also very challenging on so many facets. And then all of a sudden, our shipping timelines were so black and white before, and then all of a sudden it was like, who knows when you're going to get this thing? It's on a ship somewhere. I'm not sure what's going on. Yeah, there was sort of delays, and then inflation started and freight went up. And then that's when it's really important to understand your bottom line and be in the finance, as scary as that can be. And especially as a creative, it's not necessarily your forte to be in that space, but it is really important to be consistently, meeting and reviewing those things, because things can change, even maybe they were consistent for years and then all of a sudden they're fluctuating, and having your hand on that pulse is so crucial. And I think being able to pivot a little bit and be malleable is important, and having conversations and asking questions and being in the right rooms and pulling people in. And, it's especially hard when there's not a lot of data, which through that process there wasn't. So you're really needing to lean into your instincts and kind of guiding it through there. And it's hard. I don't know that there was an easy route forward, but we learned a lot. And now we're kind of going through the great pivot of realigning, what wasn't working, and realigning a reestablishment of ensuring that we're building from a place of filling our cups up and, really enjoying the process and the creativity and having that balance in all aspects of what we do.
Mm-hmm. I think physically, the biggest pivot was recently definitely making the decision to close the store, it was heartbreaking. It was definitely not something that we had foreseen. But we've always been an online store first, and that's where we started. And that's where the numbers have always been. We've always been primarily online, but we grew the store because we loved it. We loved having this physical experience. And when the times were good, it made sense. It was good. But it was still, the sales are still always mostly online. But when things started to slow down and our lease was ending this year, we just had to look at the numbers and say, well, I think for the next little bit, we need to focus on online. So that's what we did. It was tough. We put a lot of love into that place. But we're not closing the door to doing a physical store again. I mean, I still think that experience is really important. But it'd have to be at the right time, the right space. And we'd probably try something a little smaller next time. But that's been the biggest pivot. But so far it's proven to be the right choice. Although difficult, it was the right choice.
Yeah, I think when you're running a company, sometimes you're faced with those challenges, which are so hard to look at the data and come to that realization too. And I think it can happen at any time in any facet of the company. You might be like, oh gosh, this thing isn't working, or this way we had, built is no longer going to be the way we're going to go forward. Those things just come up, and those are the moments when you have to kind of look at the data, ask the questions, and then I think lean into that essence of where you came from and why you started, and is this going to work or not work, and be realistic, as hard as it is. It's important.
I love that you guys are always just taking that time to realign with where you guys want to be going and how things are working, because a lot of the times many just get so bogged down with, the do and getting it stuck in the weeds, and they don't take that breath to come up and, reassess, right? And it is a hard decision because you do pour your heart and soul into these things. And if it doesn't work out, or you need to pivot and maybe try that again later in a different way, it can be really hard to let that go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super hard to watch something that you built kind of have to change, but it's part of the journey sometimes. And the people too. And sometimes you get into this space too, where you're almost like listening to too much noise around you, oh, you should do that. You should do this. You should do that. And you're kind of sort of on that hamster wheel, kind of charging forward. And that's when you those are the most important moments to kind of step off and be like, okay, what is the right move for me, for us, for the company, for the longevity and sustainability of being able to navigate through this and be in a place that we're fulfilled and can bring that experience too. You don't ever want to put yourself in a place where you're just burnt out and you're not, giving it your all, and you become unhappy with the whole situation. I mean, it can happen so quickly too. It's amazing how things just sort of start to spiral, and you can really just find yourself and wake up and be like, how did I get here? What happened? Yeah.
Which really sucks when you started out creating this business and building this business that you absolutely loved. And then somewhere along the way you get lost and you're like, I hate this.
Yeah.
What just happened?
What happened? Where did we go wrong? Yeah, and that's
Exactly.
when you have to dissect things too. And I think and then sort of own it. Like what did happen? Where did we go wrong? And how do we fix it? And how do we get the train back on the tracks and realign? And that can be just sort of a small pivot. It could be a big thing. There could be multiple things that need to happen. I think assessing your business and your plan is important. And I think creating a plan is nice, but have it be a little bit malleable and a little bit fluid in the sense that things are going to need to navigate. And maybe, the path that you thought was going to be your route to the North Star isn't going to be that. And you maybe need to go this way, but your North Star maybe remains the same, the mission or the vision of why you're doing what you're doing. But I think keeping a little bit of fluidity of how you're going to get there could change.
I go back to that classic kind of meme of, the road to success isn't always very linear. It has a lot of bumps in it.
It's a bit chaotic.
Yeah, there's some
Yeah.
changes in there. So going through.
Yeah.
And I think some of it is exploration. Like you don't know what you don't know, and as you're playing around with different services or products or different ways of building out your company or exploring different avenues of creating experiences for people, some of it is just new and you're just exploring. And I think giving yourself some grace there of just I'm just trying this out and figuring out if this is the right route, and I think not always being so, I think we're such perfectionists sometimes. And it's hard to kind of admit when you're like, oh, that didn't work. Oh, this isn't the right path or this isn't the right fit for me or us or whatever it is. And so it's I think giving yourself some space to make mistakes and make exploring a part of the journey.
Yeah. I find that that's the only way that you're really going to know if you want something or not. It's your guide to narrow that path towards your North Star.
Yeah. And be forgiving with yourself and be like, okay, I got to just try a few things out, a few different types of projects, a few different types of whatever. So that, and then be like, oh, okay, I tried this worked. I tried this, that didn't work. I want to go this way. Yeah. And try to have fun with it as much as you can.
I love it. You guys seem like a very well-paired duo in business. I'd love to know about how you divide your roles. How do you guys structure yourselves in order to be able to have that creative space as an individual in your business, but also to complement each other?
Yeah, so your strength is kind of the operational.
Yeah, thankfully there was naturally, I think, a flow right from the get-go. We didn't have to butt heads from the beginning. I naturally kind of led client interactions and then the business. And then he was so naturally talented with photography and website and was like, the font this. And I'm like, I don't really care what the font looks like. So we were naturally he was so brand oriented and so keen on making sure the visuals all matched and that, the filtering of the photos was all consistent and really that client experience or customer experience right from the get-go on the websites was even so important. So I think we were so well matched in that way.
In general, you're basically handling a lot of things that happen inside the company. Mm-hmm. And I was basically making sure whatever goes outside to the world mm-hmm. is what I was kind of looking over. So, yeah.
And then we meet in the middle for design and creativity. And I think that's where if we do have arguments, although it's not very often, but sometimes we fight over cabinet colors, but
come out to good results in the end.
Yeah. So thankfully we have our own parts of the company and we get to come together when we need to, but there was never a flex or fight over, portions. It was a natural, you take this, I'll take this.
I think more recently, you're handling a bit more of the design stuff. I handle most of the logistics of the cabin side. And then in the store, we kind of both do quite a bit.
How do you maybe not put some boundaries in place? Because you're obviously working together quite a bit. You obviously live together. How do you make sure
to talk about other things sometimes?
It's hard. Yeah. It's actually really hard. People are like, how do you balance that out? And I was like, I don't know. Thankfully, we love it. So it doesn't feel, there's definitely times where it's a bit exhausting by the end of the week and there's just a lot going on. So you're ready to, shelf the conversations for a minute. But most of the time we're both just excited to talk about stuff. So there's a natural flow of energy that happens there. There are times though where we're like, okay, we should probably talk about other things other than like the business and the kids, you know.
Our creative times are the opposite too, so that's just like a little challenge. Like I'm always very
He's a night owl.
creative at night, so I go. She's about to go to bed, and I'm like, "Hey, what do you think about this design thing?" And she's like,
"I'm going to bed,"
and then you like wake me up with like, "Hey, what is this design?" And I'm like, "I'm not there yet. I need some time." You know, so
it's
a little different like
kind
that.
of funny. But yeah,
I can definitely see that. A lot of couples are kind of on the opposite side when it comes to when they work best, you know?
Yeah.
So it's interesting how you kind of navigate that between the two when you work together as a couple. I'd love to know, because obviously you are very successful in the interior design space. I want to know from you, what trends are you the most excited about right now? What do you see as being a trend that's going to stay around for quite some time and it's not something that's just going to be gone in a month or a year?
Oh my gosh. I feel like there's so many things. I think we like to play around with trends, but also always maintain that classic edge. So we like to call our style warm modern, so that there's always modern, trendy elements, but you have this warmth and that kind of classic touch that envelops time. Like,
I love the trend that, you know, things are obviously moving towards warmer tones. And very textural and moody spaces. I love moody spaces. I love my lighting. And I think that's very important. I think for a long time, like the era of the kind of really white and bright, a lot of people weren't really considering lighting design because we all take natural light photos and you see those on Instagram, but you don't see the nighttime photos. Not many people are taking nighttime photos. And I love that that's veering a little bit more. It's being more mainstream now to take these moody photos. And that highlights lighting design, which I'm really into. So I like that trend.
Yeah, really sort of layers of lighting, whether that's wall sconces, LED lighting, you know, in the cabinets or under shelving. Definitely wall details. Like obviously we love the lime washes all over the cabin, and that textural warmth I think is really inviting.
And I think it changes the whole feel of the space. Like we did the entire house in lime wash wet paint. So it's very textural. It's very warm, earthy. I love that. So,
yeah. I think different stone mixes are coming in. I mean, obviously we've seen marble, and I think that'll stay around probably forever. It'll ebb and flow with how much you're seeing it. I think marble's sort of classic, but you're also seeing like travertine and soapstone. So I think those natural stone elements are going to continue to peak over the next few years. And I think they bring a warmth and a bit of a story and depth. You know, there's so much you can do with those, whether that can be even a decor piece, a countertop, but it can be small or large.
I'm starting to see granite come back too, and different, like not the classic, like, you know, late 90s granite, but some different patterns. Like I've seen it come back a little bit. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And then I think texture in general. So whether that's sort of reeded glass or, you know, ribbed wood, people are wanting to kind of layer and play with elements, you know, and find different ways of creativity. I think we're always trying to sort of level up what we're doing. And I think all creatives kind of do that. So I'm sure we'll see.
Lately we've really been trying to like define our style, but obviously it's always going to keep evolving.
Yeah.
But you know, our style is, like she described, more modern. We're trying to maybe lean a bit more modern, and some other designers are going kind of like the opposite direction with going a bit more classic. We appreciate that. We love it. But I think in our heart, like we lean more modern. So that's going to be like our style define our style moving forward, but always incorporating new trends. Yeah.
Side question for you. For those tuning in that aren't interior designers but are looking to work with one and trying to find one that is the right fit for them, what would your advice be on trying to locate one? Like, should they be interviewing them? Should be doing like many consults, but like limiting the overwhelm? Because if you do too much, you just end up lost in a way.
Okay, so I'll give a little behind the scenes thing. As interior designers, typically we don't really love hearing when a client is shopping for designers. That a lot of designers will just say like that's a red flag.
That depends. It depends.
Well, yeah, depends situations for sure. But I think what you need to do is just kind of fall in love with a style or someone. If you have a Pinterest photo that you're really in love with, and you realize that that's a designer that's available in your area, then maybe reach out to them and then fall in love with what they're doing and everything they stand for, and their process. But yeah, you could definitely exhaust yourself by just like looking everywhere and interviewing people. So my advice would just be like, fall in love with the style, fall in love with one person you're really looking forward to working with, and just see if you can make it happen.
I think it's important too to do your own almost like homework beforehand. Like if you haven't defined your style or even looked at Pinterest or looked at any imagery, I would start there and kind of start figuring out what are you gravitating towards, because it can be so overwhelming for people. There's so much out there now and actually so many things to pull from. But I think start at least there, almost do a little bit of homework for yourself and then start pulling, who am I leaning towards? And then definitely if you feel more comfortable doing interviews with people, for us, it is a relationship. And depending on if it's a smaller project, maybe it's only taking, a few months or 6 months. If it's a larger project, it could be a couple years, and fit is so crucial. It's like a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So dating in the beginning is not a bad idea, and getting to know, that's on our discovery call. A lot of it is just feeling out if we're the right fit in terms of how we communicate, and we're digitally focused, so making sure that's a right fit. And then style wise, obviously we want to make sure that we're aligned there. We will always tailor the project to the client in terms of functionality and aesthetic, but there's a grounding work to what we create, and we want to stay within that framework. So making sure that aligns, that's so crucial. So finding the right fit is really important. It is a relationship, and you want to make sure that it's somebody that you feel comfortable with and that you trust. Trust is so crucial. So that for us is why we typically lean into like that. They're like, I love what you do. I'm going to trust you, because those for us are the best relationships. If there's no trust and they start questioning things and pulling back, it can really kind of mess up the flow.
The trust has to really be there from the get-go. So when you really have to sell yourself to someone, it's tough. It doesn't start the relationship like on a great note. So you need that trust in the beginning for sure, for the relationship to flourish throughout the whole process, I'd say.
So true. That's so true. They're investing a lot of money, right? So if they feel like they don't fully trust you, why would they want to make that decision to work with you?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's like probably with any profession, like if you don't trust your accountant or your this, that, it's like that relationship needs to be there, because otherwise you're going to start overstepping, and like you're paying them to do a job. And if you're consistently overstepping into it because you don't trust them, the flow is not working properly, and you're not going to get the end result that you're looking for, because like it's too many chefs in the kitchen.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So before we dive into your services, I want to know how you guys recharge your creative energies. What do you guys do in life to step outside of work to just kind of reset and have family time, or even just you time?
I would say, we've actually always been really good at getting outdoors, thankfully. Like we do love Tremblant, going up there. So skiing, cycling, hiking is my favorite activity.
We love hiking together. That's something we love. We plan trips around it often. But we love being outdoors, and we've always led a pretty healthy, active lifestyle, and that's really important to us. That's where I get a lot of my ideas when I'm out running or just being out in nature. Like my mind just goes like that. So I love being active. That definitely helps everything I do.
And with the kids too, there's always a lot on the go. So definitely spending quality time with them is so important. I think also taking inventory of your day and your weeks and your months, and kind of making sure that you're planning. Even recently, I was saying we need to start planning further out and making sure that we're getting that time in, because again, time can get away from you if you're not on top of it. And even recently I was like, okay, I started rejigging my mornings so that I had time to do either a quick workout or go for a walk, and then I'll like listen to a podcast or something that's giving me a fulfilling moment. And that's been so important too, because sometimes I'll get up and I'll just start work right away, and it's like, and then the kids come home, and there's just no time for yourself if you don't create it. You've got to carve that time out, and that's so crucial. And there's a way to do it. So figure out, take inventory of your day or your week and figure out when it is, because it is so important. And that's how you stay on track. I think when you lose that, that's when you wake up and you're like, how did I get here?
Absolutely. So let's talk about your services. How do you work with clients? What do you have available for people that have fallen in love with you and fully trust you and are looking for interior designers to help them?
There's different levels, and if someone's looking to, I'm sure like lots of people have various options. We have a few options to choose from. So if they're looking for furnishing from LD Shop, we have like a furnishing guide that we will provide people, which is so helpful if you're looking for a living room or dining room or a bedroom and you want, sometimes it's even hard just to like envision how to put all that stuff together. So we work with your floor plan and build out a guide, we call it, and then you can kind of shop at your own pace and on your own schedule, which is so nice. And then we have a virtual consult. So I'll spend an hour virtually with someone kind of running through whatever questions they want to ask me.
That's pretty new too. We're just starting to promote that, the hourly consult. So
yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be a virtual guide, and then we'll send a little document afterwards with everything that we discussed. And then obviously our full service where we're able to work alongside clients for the duration of their project. And that's like, we'll start with a discovery call and then do a proposal. And then if we both feel like it's the right fit, and then we'll work together on their project depending on, and then the scope is based on whatever if it's a remodel or a new build or whatever it is that they're looking for, the scope will be based off of that.
Amazing. All right. Well, where can people connect with you? Where do you hang out the most online?
Where can they not connect with us? We have a few different channels. Obviously, Leclair Decor. Instagram is, I would say, the place that we're there most.
Yeah.
Instagram, and then LD Shop and LD Cabin, and then all 3 websites.
Yeah, and we're on YouTube too. We're took a little bit of hiatus doing like full length videos, but we've been posting some of our shorts on there. But we're planning to jump back in and do some long format videos again in the upcoming year. So we're really excited about that and jumping back in there. And we're on TikTok too, all the places.
All the places.
Pinterest, yeah.
Amazing. Well, I will have all that info in the show notes for those tuning in. And I just want to say a massive thank you for joining me. Your journey is so inspiring and you've built an incredible business and you've shared incredible insights and advice today that I know many tuning in who are currently in the process of building their own empires will be able to take away and apply and be able to experience some success from it. So thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today. Your presence truly elevates Love Unplugged into a home for freedom-driven women who aspire to be visionary CEOs. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd be honored if you'd take a moment to rate and review the show. Your feedback helps us bring more impactful conversations to our community. Let's continue to grow this empowering community together. Until next time.